1. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Centre Circle podcast, the new home for West Midlands football. For all of you that are new to the podcast, I'm your host, Al Nichols, and I'm here to represent Wolves. And joining me today, we've got Sam, Alex, and Drew, each representing West Brom, Birmingham City, and Aston Villa. For those that have tuned in so far, I hope you've enjoyed, you've liked, and you've subscribed. Your support's hugely appreciated. Don't forget to give us a follow on Twitter as well, where you can interact with us all a little bit more. And if you actually want to come on the pod yourself to discuss your team, any team for that matter, it doesn't have to be West Midlands based. The Twitter handle will be posted in the description below, and one of us will be in touch to get you on. Coming up in today's episode, we'll be debating on an all-time Premier League 11. We've agreed on a flat 4-4-2 formation in its classic format. What we're going to do is I'll state the position, then we'll each submit our selections, and then my battle commence. So to start off, obviously, we would go with the number 1, and that is in goal. So who have you got, gents, and what? Well, just straight away, who have you got?
We go a particular order.
Okay, so if we just go Alex, Drew, Sam, Dale.
Schmeichel.
Check.
Better check.
I've got Van der Sar.
Wow.
2 for check, and I've given this a little bit of thought. My reasonings for picking Edwin van der Sar are based on the fact that he holds a Premier League record of 14 clean sheets in a row. He's the best keeper I think that United had in 10 years. He was the first real replacement for what Schmeichel was. They'd only won 1 title in 5 years before Van der Sar came, and then they won 4 in 5 years. And he guided them to that elusive second European Cup for Sir Alex. So I actually think that on that basis, what Van der Sar did at Man United was rebuild and was part of that second wave, which was arguably better than the teams during the 90s anyway. They went deeper into Europe on a more regular basis. And I think that Van der Sar was the man between the sticks. He won them a European Cup. And I know this is Premier League based, but it's everything that was loaded into it. I think that Van der Sar, 14 clean sheets in a row, it'll never be matched. It'll never be beaten.
That's a fair shout, to be fair.
He was a phenomenal goalkeeper. Very underrated as well.
Small Anzo.
Drew, do you want to go to me and Drew got the same?
Yeah, I'm Petr Cech, just based on the fact that in terms of overall Premier League ever, he's got the second best shot percentage saves in a hell of a lot of appearances as well. Strangely enough, the only person to top him is Pepe Reina, which again could be someone's shout if you're a Liverpool fan and sort of we're interested in that side of it. But for me personally, Petr Cech, 4 Premier Leagues, Champions Leagues, won it all. Did it with a couple of teams as well. I know you say Van der Sar did it with Fulham and Manchester United, but for me personally, I can't see past Petr Cech, I'm afraid.
Schmeichel, I just thought, to be honest, I haven't done much research on this. Partly for a reason, because I didn't want to do loads of research and then kind of get swayed. Like, I want my memory to make me decide who the best 11 is from remembering them playing, and not what I see online because stats and this many assists and this many goals. So I've kind of kept away from some research, but I just felt like Schmeichel was a bit of an obvious choice. It's just like, I don't know, it's just the OG. And I did consider Van der Sar and Cech, but I don't know. I just fancied Schmeichel. I feel like he's just the keeper. I don't really have stats written down, but I don't know. He was just like my number 1. I was like, yeah, Schmeichel, move on.
I'm with Joe on this one. For me, Cech just epitomises that Chelsea team of the era, and it's one of the better Premier League teams, I'd say. I'll give you a stat trick. I know we don't like them. 443 Premier League appearances, 202 clean sheets. That's nearly a clean sheet every other game. That's phenomenal, whatever level of football you're playing. 4-time Golden Glove winner. Came through what was a really serious injury, the head injury, came back still pretty much the same goalkeeper. I think he just is the most iconic Premier League goalkeeper, and I feel the shouts for Schmeichel and Van der Sar. Van der Sar didn't do it long enough in the Premier League for me, although he was a phenomenal goalkeeper. Schmeichel probably did, and I think Schmeichel's the closest one to check, actually.
4 titles in 5 years, man. Come on.
Yeah, but Schmeichel's probably more of a shout for me because I think he won more titles, didn't he?
He won 5. He won 5, granted.
But when you look at the Premier League as a whole, I think Czech did it for a long time, didn't he? And
it's a fair show. It's a fair show.
I think I'm kind of basing it a little bit on in terms of Villa as well. So I think that our back four this year has been transformed just purely because of that reassurance that Martinez gives for us. And I think that sort of, you look at that Chelsea sort of defence with John Terry, and I think a lot of kind of his reassurances came from Peter Cech personally. So yeah, I just think, who would I want behind me? And I couldn't look past him.
Okay. Now, I think by majority decision, obviously, Czech's going in. So we've got Czech between the sticks. To be honest, would there realistically be a wrong answer here? I think personally, we've named the best 3 between us anyway.
Sam Johnston.
Emi Martinez.
Okay, then, so moving on. Right back.
Trig?
I've got Gary Neville.
Gary Neville.
Yeah, full house, Gary Neville.
It's got to be it.
No debate we have. No
There's
debate.
no-
I think you could. There's probably a fair shape for people who grew up in a different era to maybe a Dennis Irwin, potentially even a Pablo Zabaleta.
Ivanovic for me is probably closest.
Yeah, good. And another fair shape with Ivanovic, but I think we've all come to the agreement. Gary Neville. Yeah, 4 out of 4.
Yeah, just trophies alone gets him that position for me.
2 centre backs.
2, both of them.
Both centre backs.
Rio and John Terry.
Rio and Tony Adams.
Rio and JT.
John Terry and Vidic for me.
Fair shouts again.
Vidic was close for me as well.
I think John Terry obviously goes straight in there. No, pretty much no debating on that one.
Sam didn't have John Terry, did he?
3 of us have got John Terry. I
fair.
think by decision, I think that pretty much it's fair to put John Terry straight in there. I think the debate to be had is obviously we've got 2 for Rio, 1 for Vidic, 1 for Tony Adams. I mean, I'll pitch why I think Nemanja Vidic, and that's again going with the Van der Sar sort of agenda. He was sort of the transformation period for Manchester United in that second wave of a team that tended to dominate in the late 2000s, early to 2010s, 5 Premier League titles, again contributing to that elusive second European Cup, and actually a fact that was pretty much always sidestepped. He was made captain over Rio Ferdinand at Manchester United, so that tells you the standing he had there. And I always say, personally, I think all-round game, he's the best defender I've ever seen.
I think Vidic came close, but I don't think you can put him in over Rio. How long was Vidic at United for?
About 7 or 8 years, I think, weren't it?
Was it that long?
Yeah.
Well, he won 5 titles. He's won 5 titles.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah.
See, I get your argument, but I'm whether I'm being tainted by sort of modern day football, if you like, but I genuinely think that, and of course Vidic would sort of be suited to this game now, but would he be able to go and play for Man City right now? I don't think he's not that ball playing centre-half, whereas I do think Ferdinand could do it all. I think he could play out. I think he was classy. He was so composed. You saw him, I think I watched the Champions League final. I think it was like a semi-final, Barcelona potentially. And, you kind of put yourself into their shoes. You think, imagine how nervous these lads are. And I think the first 5 minutes the ball came out and he kind of Cruyff turned it past. And I thought, he's just on a different planet at the back there. And that's for me why he picked Vidic.
Yeah, I think Vidic was more of like an angry old school centre-half, which normally I like and he's good. And Rio was an all-rounder.
They complemented each other absolutely perfectly. It's by no means, there's absolutely no debate that it's probably the best partnership that's ever been in the Premier League. I just more edge towards Vidic because I actually think he had another level to his game. I know that the reasons that you've described with Rio, and for me, Rio would probably be 3rd on my list. But I just swayed a little bit more towards Vidic. But I'm interested to hear this Tony Adams shout.
How often do we hear today about a team that's got no leader? For me, Tony Adams is the ultimate leader. Like, you go into battle for Tony Adams, wouldn't you? All right, I accept he's probably not as gifted technically as the others, and I think we might be doing a little bit of a disservice. But for me, if I wanted to play for a footballer that was going to get me G'd up to go into war, Tony Adams is your man. You only got to look at the Euro 96 national anthem when he's absolutely belting it out, man. Like he just loves football. Won 2 Premier Leagues as well in a pretty decent Arsenal team. Like I say, probably not as gifted as the others, but if you're looking at a Premier League all-time 11, you need the ultimate leader in there. And for me, that's Tony Adams. Like, just epitomises everything about going in and winning and just G'ing up everyone.
So that's where John Terry comes in for me. That's where
John Terry was a bit more tainted by things that happened outside of his Premier League career. A bit of more of a questionable character than Tony Adams, I'd say.
I get that.
Put me off John Terry a little bit.
I get that, but
would Wayne Bridge want to play for John Terry? You know what I mean?
But would you want Wayne Bridge? Would you want Wayne Bridge in your team?
Well, we'll be coming to left back in a minute. We'll be coming to the left back.
You know, I know who I prefer. If I'm going to have to upset one, I know I'm upsetting Wayne Bridge. I'm afraid. You know, nothing against the bloke, decent player, but I want JT in my team rather than Wayne Bridge.
But it doesn't mean like you should be getting on with everyone in your team. For me, Tony Adams is that leader that does. He builds the team together. Whereas sometimes you'd think JT kind of drifts the team apart a little bit just because he's
I think it's a bit harsh. I think he looked after his wife quite well.
No, anyway, sticking to football.
I can accept Ferdinand.
I think that, you know, by majority, he's going to be a Ferdinand Terry partnership at the back. But yeah, we've all offered our thoughts. Again, please, anyone who's listening who differs from our opinions, please post your comments in the section below, and we'll definitely get back to you. So moving on to the left back spot, who have we all got?
Ashley Cole.
I don't think there could be any argument about
Full
it.
house again, Ashley Cole.
I think he's not only one of the best left backs in the Premier League, he's one of the best left backs of all time.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think we're agreeing too much, to be honest.
I think he's potentially like the first sort of left back that almost kind of created that left wing back role. That, you know, he was a left back, but he genuinely was a left wing back because he was more of an attacking threat, but he could properly defend as well. I think it was Ronaldo said that it was the hardest opponent he's ever played against. Now that's some compliment from someone like that. And I think Ashley Cole said, like, I actually enjoyed playing against Ronaldo. And I think I can't imagine many people have ever done that. So, you know, just on those sort of comments alone, he kind of puts himself in there for me.
Yeah, no, definitely agree with that. I think, you know, an honourable second would probably be Patrice Evra. I think we'd all pretty much agree on that as well. So,
I don't think it's anywhere near, though, is it? I think the gap's
it's worlds apart. Apart.
I think if we look at the back five, then I think we've got Petr Cech, Gary Neville, John Terry, Rio Ferdinand, Ashley Cole, 4 Englishmen in there so far. So good. Okay, then. So moving on, we're going to go to the right midfield spot.
Ronaldo.
Cristiano Ronaldo.
Beckham
for me as well.
Purely on the basis, don't get me wrong, Ronaldo, for me, he's better than Messi, but that's for another podcast. And undoubtedly one of the best ever to play football. But was he the best ever in the Premier League? Not sure. I don't think he was there long enough to
won a Ballon d'Or while he was in the Premier League.
I totally agree with that, and I'll sort of accept that as well. But I just think that the sort of sustained sort of consistency and quality that Beckham brought, and some of the goals that he scored in such important moments for Man U, don't get talked about enough.
I think for me, he only had one good season, Ronaldo. I think, you know, you want to come on to the David Beckham debate. He's won 6 Premier League titles. He did it over a sustained period of time as well. He was absolutely one of the first names you can probably guarantee on Sir Alex's team sheet. I know that there was a little bit of tongue-in-cheek in Sir Alex's book saying, you know, Beckham wasn't a world-class player. But for me, I think that what he's done and what he achieved in the Premier League era does put Ronaldo to one side. I don't think that Ronaldo was in the Premier League long enough to sort of have that same level of impact for me.
Same kind of time as Van der Sar, though, wasn't he, really? And he won Premier League Player of the Season twice. Cristiano Ronaldo did. He's an unbelievable player. He changed how football, I think, is played, in that he kind of became that midfielder who kind of became a centre forward then. His goals, his assists, he was everything. Like the Premier League was less of a competition when Cristiano Ronaldo left. Beckham, I think, sometimes gets a raw deal. Like he seemed more of a celebrity than a footballer, and I think that's wrong. I think he was a fantastic footballer, but for me, Ronaldo, just the skill set, the threat of goal. I don't think Beckham necessarily had the same threat of goal as Ronaldo did. Good dead ball specialist, but I think Ronaldo had absolutely everything, and he wasn't even at his peak of his career when he played in the Premier League, and that just shows you how good he is.
Well,
that was my argument of to not putting him in, because I think he's had his best. He's had the better part of his career outside the Prem personally. Don't get me wrong, I watched him at Villa and he was one of the best I've ever seen at Villa. Absolutely head and shoulders above anyone I've seen play live, and he was very, very close, but I just felt like that Beckham had the better career in the Premier League.
I think Ronaldo had everything that Beckham had and more. Like you say, Beckham was, his right foot was immense, but could he beat a man like Ronaldo can? He wasn't as attacking as Ronaldo is, and goals and assists, and I just think I don't know, I can understand your Beckham shouts, but for me, it has to be Ronaldo.
Well, it's 2-2. So how are you going to decide this, Dale?
Yeah. To be honest, I think a better argument possibly has been put forward for Ronaldo on this one. And I think I might be duty bound to sort of concede here on this one, because I am going to need, on this next position, a little bit of leverage. So I think I'm happy to put Ronaldo in there. To say Cristiano Ronaldo wouldn't make an all-time team of any sort, like you said, would be doing him a bit of a disservice given the career and what the guy's done. He's absolutely outstanding. We'll never see a player like him ever again. So, is it a wrong answer to put him in? Absolutely not. I personally would have put Beckham in, so would Drew, but we'll give you Ronaldo on this one. So Ronaldo
pull
on
out
the right.
Ruben Neves, are you, Dale? Because I cannot support
So the centre of midfield. What's your two centre midfielders?
Okay. Oh, I thought you were going to go left mid. My two centre mids are, one of them's obvious, and the other one I don't think any of you will have. So Paul Scholes is the obvious one, and then I've had Patrick Vieira.
Scholes and Lampard for me.
I've gone Lampard and Vieira.
I've gone Roy Keane and Steven Gerrard.
I can see them all, to be honest with you.
Exactly, and do you know what? We've pretty much covered them all, and I think that there's one player as well which deserves a more than honourable mention, and that's David Silva.
Yeah, agreed. Definitely agree. Yeah.
I think he's been outstanding, but to put him in, above, to put him above any of these would be really, really pushing it for me. But
Kevin De Bruyne comes close as well.
Yeah, I think he's got to do it for a bit longer though.
Not
He's constantly injured as well, isn't he?
I mean, again, I think I'm tainted a little bit here because I went for Lampard because quite clearly, to be in the top 10 all-time goal scorers from a centre mid position, he's undroppable. He's got to be in there for me personally. And then I've just kind of tried to balance that midfield out because we know that Lampard and Gerrard didn't work out. And I just think that Vieira, he didn't just bring like everything as a midfield. I mean, he's about 6'4", 6'5". He was good in the air. He was strong. He was aggressive. And I genuinely feel that when he left Arsenal, that was the start of their demise. I think that's when a big character left their team and changing room. And I think that is, for me, what I'd want in my team.
And I think with Vieira, Arsenal haven't really had like that leader that I think they've needed for 10 years or so since he left. They just haven't had anyone to go in and, like Sam said, with Tony Adams, they haven't had that anymore. I think Vieira was the last guy.
Yeah.
Scholes for me has got to be on there. So you look at what Zinedine Zidane said about Scholes, like probably one of the best midfielders of his generation. If Zinedine Zidane saying that about a counterpart, then you've got to take that with a lot of weight, to be honest.
Yeah.
Achieved loads, didn't he, in the Premier League, won Premier League numerous times. When he retired too early from England, in my opinion, and England, I know we're talking about Premier League, but I think England suffered for his retirement as well. So I think it was after the 2004 Euros, wasn't it, Dale? You correct me if I'm wrong on that, but we also suffered for it. He was just an unbelievable player. I remember that season where he retired and then came back again to Man United. I think he changed the season, didn't he, as soon as he came back? And that was an older Paul Scholes. Paul Scholes, in his heyday, was just fantastic.
I think with Scholes, he was someone that I don't think I appreciated until he was in the further part of his career. And the reason why, for me, he didn't get into the team is because even when Gerrard, Lampard, and Stevie G were all at the prime, ready, fit, whatever, he didn't push either of them two out of the England team in the centre mid for me.
Didn't he?
They played him left. They played him left mid all the time. It was what a waste of a in the modern day where you play three in midfield. You look back at that three of Scholes, Lampard, and Gerrard, and it would have just been a completely different kettle of fish, in my opinion, of having like 2 8s and a 10. You know what I mean? It's just different kettle of fish now. But because it was such sort of a 4-4-2 way of thinking, he was always left midfield.
But that's more the manager. Like, if you see interviews now, people always say that's where England went wrong by not playing Scholes where he should have played, because he was the best player out of the three.
Absolutely. Obviously, I've got two shapes that none of you other guys have mentioned, and one of them obviously has been Roy Keane. I can't believe he's been missed off by any of you guys. He's absolutely iconic in the Premier League. He's the ultimate big game player for me, Roy Keane. He's the one person you're saying you want to go into battle with. Roy Keane would be the one for me. Absolutely outstanding. Defensive, attacking, everything about him. He had it all. He was the driving force for Man United for a number of years. He allowed others to play. He was the one player for me that you would want to be going into battle with. And I think, he's won multiple titles. Obviously, I know I've picked Steven Gerrard, which many of you will say, how can you put a player in that hasn't won the Premier League? But I think that Roy Keane, he's just a legend, isn't he? He's just a legend.
Liability.
Steven Gerrard, for me, I think he's probably he's the best midfielder ever to play in the Premier League. You can point to the fact that he hasn't sort of won the Premier League title, but is that to say that he wasn't good enough to win the Premier League? He could have gone anywhere. He could have gone in any team in the world at the peak of his powers, and that is an absolute fact that cannot really be argued with. I don't think he could have gone anywhere. Steven Gerrard. He could have gone anywhere. And
he could have, but so
fantastic.
Could have. All
he got it all again.
Mentioned in centre mid.
He got long range passing. He got fight. He got determination. He got big goals in big games. He won a Champions League single-handedly, an FA Cup pretty much on his own as well. He just, for me, was the all-round player. He was a fantastic ball carrier. He had a great shot from outside the box. He's reading of the game. For me, I just think that how can you avoid putting Steven Gerrard in there?
We can't have this conversation without mentioning the slip, though, can we? Because I think that taints him a little bit for me.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I think your two midfielders, Dale, I think are both loose cannons. I really do. I think Gerrard, and you might laugh at me, but he's one of the worst tacklers I've ever seen in my life in terms of he would bottle everything in terms of going over it. He would protect himself. He'd never get hurt, but he'd be, I remember a tackle he did on George Boateng, and that might sound ridiculous.
You've got Patrick Vieira in your team, and you're saying Roy Keane's a loose cannon. I'd love to see the stats on who's got more cards.
What I'm saying is, Vieira was an out-and-out defensive midfielder for me, like a box-to-box, but he was defensive-minded. And yeah, you are going to pick cards up. But Gerrard, the amount of times he got sent off in Merseyside derbies. Roy Keane.
Paul Scholes been sent off many times. Patrick Vieira has been sent off many times. These big players.
Gerrard's overrated, man.
Yeah,
he comes nowhere near in my Premier League all-time 11. Nowhere near.
I think it's the Liverpool agenda. I think it's just an agenda against Liverpool. You cannot detract from the man's quality. Even for England, all throughout the years, are you telling me that Steven Gerrard was not on that team sheet before Frank Lampard and Paul Scholes? Because yes, he was.
I'm Team Lampard. I am. I'm Team Lampard.
Am I? Yeah. Good goals.
Player, man.
I've got to say, Dale, your two centre mids don't come in my top 5, mate.
Yes,
I think Gerrard definitely does for me, but Keane maybe not.
No, Keane doesn't.
I'd have Kevin De Bruyne. I know Kevin De Bruyne probably hasn't been there long enough, but I have De Bruyne over Gerrard.
Nah, not for me. That Gerrard's up there, but I don't think he does.
De Bruyne's the best midfielder in the world, and he has been for probably 3 years.
Yeah.
Big Joshua Kimmich should have a word with you about that.
Steven Gerrard has never been the best midfielder in the world, ever.
Oh, come off it.
He was at one point.
Come on.
Nah, not when
That's
Xavi.
my
Unfortunately,
I don't think he has.
Unfortunately, he was
He won
in
a
the era with
European Cup
Xavi
on
and
its own, man.
Iniesta.
Are you
Xavi
telling me
and
Steven
Iniesta.
Gerrard between 2003 and 2006 at no point during that time was not the best midfielder in the world? Come on. And the fact that you're even saying that he might have been at that level tells you that really deep down you probably think he was at that level. But by majority, again, I think, if we've got...
2 Patrick Vieira's, 2 Lampards.
What about Scholes?
Yeah, with 2 Scholes, yeah.
2 Scholes. Okay, so as the neutral in this, I'll have to put my casting
Play
vote
Scholes
on
out
this one
left.
then. I think out of those players there, I think Scholes and Lampard would come higher on my list out of those 3 players. So
I mean, it's your opinion.
But as a neutral out of them, I would have put Scholes and Lampard higher up than Vieira. We've got three into 2 here, so I think we've got Scholes and Lampard going into the middle.
What Dale says goes. If there's a tie, it's whatever Dale thinks.
I think no. So whoever hasn't sort of voted for either of those players, I hadn't got Scholes or Lampard in my team.
Okay, you can have it. Yeah, go on.
Left midfield.
Giggsy.
Giggs.
Best ever winger the Premier League's ever seen.
3-1. I've got Eden Hazard on the left.
Not over Giggs for me, nowhere near.
I've got Eden Hazard, and I should mention a few reasons why. I know that Giggs has obviously got the most Premier League titles, most appearances, but for me, I don't think Roy Keane was ever world class. I think that Eden Hazard was world class for 2 to 3 years between 2015 and 2018. I think he was comfortably the best player in the world beyond Ronaldo and Messi. Absolutely unplayable on his day, and he genuinely was the best player in the Premier League.
You've put up a good fight for him there, to be fair, but still haven't convinced me.
No.
I do agree with what you've said. I think he was world class, and he was one of the best players in the world for a couple of seasons. But I just can't look past Ryan Giggs again. For me, it's an obvious one. It's left mid Giggs, and I think when Giggs was playing, I feel like we didn't appreciate him as much. It was like we took him for granted, and it was like, oh, Giggs, is he that good? Is he that good? But when you look at it, he was so good. And over that length of time as well, Eden Hazard probably had 2 world-class years, and then around that.
But this is my point over Ronaldo and Beckham, though. This was my point over Ronaldo and Beckham.
Yeah,
it's the fact that I know that, but my point was it's the heights that he's managed to reach in his game during the Premier League era. And for me, I think that Eden Hazard did reach higher heights than what Giggs did, and he did hold it on for a good 2 to 3 years before obviously moving to Real Madrid. Giggs, obviously the argument. The fact is, he's got the most Premier League titles, so how can that realistically be argued against? And I just think
I've done a bit of digging on Ryan Giggs as well.
I think if you took Giggs out of that Man United team at the time, I don't think that they would have suffered massively. I know it sounds like a wild comment, but as much as taking Hazard out of that Chelsea team, he drove them to multiple titles. He genuinely was world class.
I think also with Giggs, back in the day, the left midfield was a left midfield. It wasn't like Eden Hazard. He's a striker. He's a forward.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Giggs, to get the goals and assists that he did, just playing as a flat left midfield, a flat, boring 4-4-2, is much better than Eden Hazard, who was basically a striker.
And he cheated a lot. Hazard, you never saw him come back out over the halfway line. And that was my argument, really, with Beckham and Ronaldo. In a flat 4-4-2, you think Ronaldo really spent most of his time in the Premier League as a left forward, really. If you said to Ronaldo, in his prime, go and be a right winger, up and down, bombing up and down, and saying hello to Gary Neville on the way round, Ronaldo wouldn't have been anywhere near that. And that was my argument. And same thing with Giggs. He was the first really to break through in that sort of class of 92. He was one of the last to leave. His consistency levels were just on a different level. Like it was very rare that he dropped below an 8. Goals, could go past players at ease. Scored one of the most iconic Premier League goals ever. The one with his.
That was FA.
FA Cup. Awesome.
So yeah, for me personally,
should have known that. It was at Villa Park.
Hosted the most FA Cups ever. We have.
Okay, then. So obviously, 3-1.
Giggs is
Ryan
Giggs
Giggs.
is one of the first names on there for me. Like you've got, if you win 13 Premier League tops, you've got to go on the list, don't you? I think.
Yeah,
Okay.
the left side sorted itself for me. Cole and Giggs.
I think what killed him is he didn't have a massive international career. I think maybe.
I actually think he was the missing link for England.
I think
being Welsh, how can you be a missing link?
No, but what I mean, but he's not Welsh, is he? He chose
to play. Yeah, he could have played for
England.
England. He was born in
He's
England.
a mank. He was a mank. He chose to play for Wales because his dad cheated on his mum.
We stick to the football. Okay, then up to strikers. Obviously, we were agreeing on Ryan Giggs on the left-hand side. So up front, 2 strikers.
Right, it has to be. And if all of you haven't got this player, then I'm done. I'm walking out. Thierry Henry.
And
do I have to say my other one now?
Yes.
Because I ain't decided. Right. So quickly, I wrote down.
Just to give us your 2 strikers.
Just your 2.
But I'm going to change it to Sergio Aguero.
Okay.
Henry and Aguero for me as well.
Rooney and Henry.
Henry and Aguero for me.
Yeah, Rooney, the most overrated player in Premier League history.
Van Nistelrooy only won 1 title. I don't know if you can put him in there.
Box.
Van Nistelrooy.
I haven't had Rude. No
Aguero, you mentioned him. I'll say that Aguero is the most goals from an overseas player, the most hat-tricks, 4 Premier League titles, which all those straight away better anything that Henry did. But I have got Henry as my number 2 because I think he was the second best in there. I'm surprised that Shearer hasn't been put forward by one person because of the goals.
He weren't really our era, was he?
But yet again, I think Henry and Aguero are the 2 best strikers ever to play in the Premier League for me.
You look at the goal scoring record. Aguero's got 180 in 268 appearances. That's unbelievable. That's almost La Liga levels. That is. That's almost Messi and Ronaldo levels. You don't see that in the Premier League often, do you? To be fair, Shearer's fantastic player, but he only won 1 Premier League title, didn't he? I don't know why he went to Newcastle. I think he was meant to push them on, but I'm not sure they were anywhere close. I think they were close to the title 1 or 2 times. Henry's got to go in there, change Premier League football, didn't he? I think when he came in, just the way he wasn't a traditional striker, was he, Henry? Like you look at Shearer,
started left wing, did he, Sam? Did he start left wing?
Yeah, something like that.
They bought him the day after they sold Anelka.
Yeah, Juve, wasn't it? About 10 million. Shearer was like just a flat track bully when he whacked the ball into him. He scores with his head. Henry can do anything. Like he could just run up the length of the pitch and score a goal. And his goal scoring record's unbelievable as well.
Yeah, I think it was Carragher who said about Henry. It was like a year 6 plan against like year 3s in a playground. He was just like, he was much faster, he was bigger, he was much quicker, and like some of the goals he scored, he weren't just like rapid and just got a lot of space and had loads of time to finish. Some of the goals he put around people, and he's my all-time favourite Premier League player ever anyway. So he was a cert for me. But kind of going back to Rooney, and I'm quite interested to find out why you think he's overrated. But for me personally, I don't think you sit as being England's all-time goal scorer, and Man United, who are the biggest club in the world, he owns their sort of goal scoring records. So I get, he's been there a long time. I get that, but you're a finisher if you're leading those 2 goal scoring records for me.
You said it, longevity. If you're there for long enough and you've got that quality around you, you're going to score goals. I just don't think he scored enough goals.
I think towards the end of his career, I think he did lose a bit of his edge. But for me personally, what was bad for Rooney is when he broke onto the scene, he was so bullish. He'd fly into tackles. And I love that about Rooney. And it was almost the press, I think, that kind of talked him out of it and calmed him down. And I think it made him less of a player, to be honest. I mean, one of the best goals I ever seen him score was that goal against Newcastle, where he's absolutely having it off with the ref. And he just absolutely puts one top left. Just pure frustration. And I think that left his game. And I think he became less of a player because of it.
Can I say why I was going to choose Van Nistelrooy? I think I just love him. I think defending was better back then. Like, defending isn't a thing now. There's no Vidiches and Tony Adamses anymore. And even your fullbacks are attacking players. So it's kind of easier to score goals. And I think he deserved a mention because I remember like when we were younger, it was just Henry and Van Nistelrooy just tearing it up every week. and that's, I don't know. He was just a legend, but he doesn't get in there after Aguero. Aguero's one of my favourite players of all time.
Yeah.
So I've got to stick him in there.
I think Aguero's probably got arguably the most iconic Premier League goal of all, hasn't he?
Aguero?
As well.
Yep. Yeah.
Absolutely. I don't think that you can leave out Aguero or Henry, but again with Rooney, it was hard for me to leave him out. It really was. And in a 4-4-2, I really had to go with what I believed was the two best players with the biggest impact. Probably for their respective clubs as well. And I think it's probably, again, testament to probably a good Man United were to easily think that, they had a Tevez, they had a Ronaldo, that they could have coped without Rooney. Whereas I don't think Man City or Arsenal could ever have coped without Aguero or Henry. 4 titles, Aguero, 3 titles, Henry. I know Rooney's probably got a lot more than that. I think he's got about 6 or 7. Rooney's got, but
5, I think.
I just think that for me, that those two do sit just a slight level above Rooney.
Okay, let's recap it then. So what's our 11?
Okay, so we've got Petr Cech in goal, right back Gary Neville. Centre backs, we've got John Terry and Rio Ferdinand. Left back, we've got Ashley Cole. Right midfield, we've got Cristiano Ronaldo. Centre midfield, we've got Paul Scholes and Frank Lampard. Left midfield, we've got Ryan Giggs. And up front, we've got Thierry Henry and Sergio Aguero.
With that, yeah.
Is
team, yeah.
Aguero the only current player who's still playing that we've got in?
Yeah.
See,
Yeah.
And I think this is the thing.
Wrong.
I think this is a thing. I think, if De Bruyne or that sort, we've mentioned, have they not been there long enough? If they'd have sort of been playing at the same time as them, I just don't think, I think De Bruyne does get a shout. Those sort of players that are currently playing now, I think continue the way they're playing. I think, they could quite easily get themselves in.
I think if De Bruyne has another 2 years at the level he's playing now, or 3 years, you go straight in, no question. For me,
Harry Kane for me. Harry Kane on top. Harry Kane.
Anyway,
yeah.
Right, so that concludes today's episode 4 of the Centre Circle podcast. I hope you've enjoyed. Please offer your comments below on your all-time Premier League 11s. And once again, thanks for